Hey guys, Silver here, and for the longest time, Sonic Generations was my favorite Sonic game, and a large reason for that, other than being the first Sonic game I played, it's also just a genuinely amazing game that celebrates everything special about the Sonic series. But I am happy to say that 13 years later, Sonic Generations has finally been beaten for my favorite Sonic game, with Sonic X Shadow Generations, and more specifically, I think Shadow Generations, the new game featured with the remaster in order to tie in with Shadow the Hedgehog's appearance in the upcoming third Sonic film, is the best Sonic game since the original Sonic Generations and is an amazing next-gen Sonic experience that not only serves as a celebration to the adventure and Dark Age era of Sonic, much like what Sonic Mania did for the Genesis era, but this game also serves as the long-awaited sequel to my favorite game that I never knew I wanted. But first, let's take a look back at Sonic Generations and any changes made by the newly released remaster. The story of Sonic Generations is that after Sonic's friends throw him a birthday party, a mysterious entity called the Time Eater captures Sonic's friends and traps them in different points in time, sucking all the color and life out of the world. This results in Sonic and Tails teaming up with the classic versions of themselves to save their friends and collect the Chaos Emeralds to defeat the Time Eater, who is later revealed to be controlled by Dr. Eggman and his younger self, Dr. Robotnik. Even though this story was pretty basic and there weren't that many cutscenes, I always liked the simple yet effective setup for the two Sonics running through places from the past, and I thought this story also had some neat callbacks and funny moments. I especially appreciate the original Sonic Generation story after how much they changed this game's story in the remaster. This is pretty much the only time I'm really gonna be negative, but it has to be brought up. This rewrite in Sonic Generations was not only unnecessary, but it's straight up just bad. First off, the voice acting and the delivery of lines is significantly worse. All the newly added references feel too forced, and worst of all, they felt the need to censor stupid things like Knuckles calling classic Sonic fat, which was genuinely funny in the original, and more importantly, completely changed Amy's character into not making her a Sonic fangirl anymore, even though that was the whole point of her character. Ever since Sonic Frontiers, they kept feeling the need to change Amy's character to the point where she's just a pink Sonic whose only personality is vaguely being nice, and it's just annoying. It's especially frustrating that they took the time and effort to change Amy's animations in some cutscenes to make her not be obsessed with Sonic anymore, yet they didn't change animations for other change lines that actually needed them, cause now it just feels like characters are lip syncing over animations that don't even reflect what's going on in the cutscenes. Though adding Chao in Sonic's birthday party was kinda cool. Since the story in Sonic Generations isn't too important, the rewrite doesn't ruin the game for me, but they absolutely can't do something like this for games like Sonic Unleashed in the future. But anyways, with that out of the way, let me talk about why I love this game so much. Sonic Generations features two gameplay styles. Modern Sonic features the boost gameplay, and in my opinion, this is the best 3D Sonic has ever played, and it's the perfect mix between the speed of Sonic Unleashed and the platforming of Sonic Colors, and he controls so good, and the remaster gives modern Sonic a drop dash, and though it's not as useful as the boost, it's still cool to have, and you can surprisingly gain some momentum using it. As for classic Sonic, it features a modern 2.5D take on the Genesis era games, with an overpowered spin dash, and even though the controls and physics aren't like the classic Sonic games, he still controls great, and using the broken spin dash to your advantage is so much fun. Classic Sonic is also given the drop dash in this remaster, but to be honest, it's pretty useless since it's nowhere near as powerful as the regular spin dash. But something cool that they did change is that they made classic Sonic's model look more similar to his model in Sonic Superstars, which is a nice touch. What especially makes Sonic Generations special though are the amazing levels. There are 3 eras of levels in this game: the classic era, the adventure era, and the modern era. Visually speaking, these locations look so good in HD. Sky Sanctuary and Planet Wisp especially look beautiful. My favorite levels from each era for modern Sonic would have to be Green Hill, Seaside Hill, and Crisis City. And for classic Sonic, it would be Sky Sanctuary, City Escape, and Rooftop Run. I also love this game's soundtrack. All of these remixes are so fire, and most of them are honestly better than their original songs in my opinion. Some of my favorite remixes are Modern Chemical Plant, Supersonic Racing Remix, Classic Sonic Speed Highway, both the modern and classic City Escape remixes and classic Rooftop Run. Sonic Generations also has these extra challenge missions that unlock boss keys and collectibles like concept art and background music from past games. These challenges are really fun pieces of extra content, as well as some feature fun gimmicks used by Sonic's friends. The remaster of this game also adds Chao rescue missions, which is where you find 3 hidden Chao in each stage, and it's a decent way to add replay value, and it's cool seeing all these different Chao breeds in HD. Another thing that I love about Sonic Generations are the boss fights, as most of them are enemies and rivals from Sonic's past, and they're some of the best boss fights in the series. My favorite boss fights include Metal Sonic, Perfect Chaos, and fighting against Silver as a kid was my first introduction to him, and I immediately became a fan of him because of his cool design and awesome psychokinesis powers. I will say, however, the Supersonic final boss against the Time Eater isn't fun and it's pretty anticlimactic, and unfortunately the remaster doesn't fix the Time Eater fight at all. Furthermore, the remaster doesn't really change anything in the graphics department, but it is the first time this game runs natively at 1080p 60 FPS on current gen consoles, which honestly is all a Generations remaster really needed, because the visuals are already great and still hold up in my opinion. But overall, I love Sonic Generations. It's such an amazing game and celebration of Sonic's history that I have so many fond memories of, and I wouldn't be the huge Sonic fan I am today if it wasn't for this game. But now let's move on to Shadow Generations, a Shadow standalone game that takes place during the events of Sonic Generations, and much like Sonic Generations is a celebration of Shadow's history for newcomers from the upcoming third Sonic movie. The story in Shadow Generations takes place after the Dark Beginnings prologue, which was such an amazing anime style short, and I really hope we can someday get a show like this. But the short essentially revolves around Shadow having visions of his past and Black Doom returning, so with the help of Rouge and Omega, he goes to the Ark, which is where the game starts. Once Shadow makes it to the Ark, he's interrupted by the Time Eater, bringing him to White Space. And because of the Time Eater's influence, not only does it speed up Black Doom's return, but it also places Maria and Gerald Robotnik from the past in front of Shadow. And because of this, Shadow sets out to defeat Black Doom with his newly discovered Doom powers, as well as try to change Maria and Gerald's fate. Let me just say that this is without a doubt the best Sonic story since Sonic and the Black Knight. Everything about this story is great, from the writing, the voice acting, and especially the beautiful animation in these cutscenes. Every character looks so good in this game, and their animations are so fluid. These are definitely the best in-game cutscenes in any Sonic game, even better than the in-game cutscenes of Sonic Unleashed. Not only that, but this story has genuinely sad and heartfelt moments between Shadow and Maria, and it made me love both of these characters even more. And I don't even want to go too full in detail because I really think you should experience this for yourself. But man, I'm just so happy that we finally have a good Sonic story in a game after so many years. And before you ask me about Sonic Frontiers, I wasn't a fan of that game's story due to the bad cutscene animation, as well as the boring and overly self-referential writing. I just really hope that Shadow Generations' amazing story is a sign that whatever the next mainline Sonic game is, has a story with this level of quality. Speaking of quality, I just want to gush about the animations and the graphics in general, because this is definitely the best looking Sonic game, and for the first time in forever we finally have a Sonic game that feels next gen. The lighting especially looks amazing in these levels. They really did take advantage of the Hedgehog engine too. Now when it comes to the most important thing, gameplay, I'm more than happy to say that it's great. Shadow Generations features boost gameplay and he controls really good. Other than Sonic Generations, these are probably the best controls in the Boost game. I also really love Shadow's moveset, like his Chaos Snap, Chaos Control, and Chaos Spears. Shadow also has an air boost, and I found it really fun to use when platforming and speedrunning. Shadow's new Doom powers are also really fun gimmicks that add variety to the gameplay instead of being intrusive. My favorites have to be the Doom Blast because of how fun it is to beat up Black Arms aliens and teleport while doing so, and the Doom Wings are essentially a new super form for Shadow, as it's used during the final boss and you unlock it in levels afterwards. And aside from him looking awesome with these wings, I love flying around in these stages with them. Moving on to stages, the levels that are brought back are from all of Shadow's major appearances, those being Space Colony Arc from Sonic Adventure 2, Rail Canyon from Sonic Heroes, Kingdom Valley from Sonic 06, Sunset Heights from Sonic Forces. The one level from a game that Shadow isn't in is Chaos Island from Sonic Frontiers, And lastly, there's Radical Highway, also from Sonic Adventure 2. Just like in Sonic Generations, each level has two acts, with Act 1 being fully 3D and Act 2 being fully 2.5D, and it's so great finally playing through fully 3D Sonic levels, and the 2.5D levels are really good too and feature cool camera angles. Something that is pretty unfortunate, however, is that there is no Shadow the Hedgehog level, which sucks because I would have loved to see Digital Circuit or Black Comet return. Although we do have an upcoming DLC level from Sonic Movie 3 that features a movie Shadow skin, as well as a level that draws some inspiration from Westopolis, so that could be considered the Shadow the Hedgehog stage. Speaking of skins, all three playable hedgehogs have their own skins. Modern Sonic has the Sonic Adventure skin, Classic Sonic has the Sonic Jam skin, and Shadow has the Terrio skin, which was the original concept design for Shadow. These skins are pretty cool, but I gotta say I'm genuinely tired of Sega locking things like these as DLC and pre-order bonuses instead of just making them unlockable in the game. But going back to the topic of stages, these levels are amazing. The best way to describe the level design is that they're a much better version of the levels from Sonic Forces, as they are both pretty linear, but unlike Sonic Forces, there are so many alternate pathways that add so much replay value, and the visuals are so much cooler and the set pieces are much more cinematic. In fact, in some of the levels, Black Doom will send Shadow into a weird pocket dimension where he's transported in a distorted version of Radical Highway, and these are some of the coolest moments in the game, and they really remind me of the cinematic set pieces from Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which should really tell you how next-gen Shadow Generations is. The boss fights in this game are fire and have awesome set pieces as well. They're even better than the boss fights in Sonic Generations, and they're definitely one of the best in the series, only being second to the boss fights in Sonic Frontiers. I'm also really glad that the final boss against Neo Devil Doom is great too. I just really wish we got a Count Quinn cover of I Am All of Me like I suggested though, that would have been peak. Speaking of music, Shadow Generations has really good remixes of past level and boss themes, like the remixes of Supporting Me, Radical Highway, and Sunset Heights, although I don't think this game's soundtrack is as good as Sonic Generations soundtrack. But if I were to list my favorite stages, they would be Rail Canyon Act 1, both acts of Kingdom Valley, and Sunset Heights Act 2. And if I were to list my favorite boss fights, they would definitely have to be Metal Overlord and Mephiles the Dark. Can I just say that I'm so happy we actually got Sonic 06 representation in this game. I remember freaking out when Kingdom Valley was announced to be a stage, and I'm also pretty happy I predicted Mephiles being a boss. Another huge thing that Shadow Generations features is the White Space Hub World, but this time it's fully 3D and plays like the open zone gameplay in Sonic Frontiers, where you can run around and grind on rails, access challenge stages, do time-based missions, and talk to characters like Omega, Big, Orbot, and Cubot. This was a really fun surprise, and it was really cool seeing the White Space Hub World in a much larger, more fleshed out way. My favorite area definitely has to be the hidden tunnel that leads to the Mephiles boss gate, where you have to use Doom Morph to travel through it while creepy music plays. Just like Sonic Generations, the hub world as well as stages also have collectibles that unlock things like concept art, background music from past games, history bios of Shadow's past games, and pages from Gerald Robotnik's journal. I absolutely love all of these unlockable extras that celebrate Shadow's history, and the collection room is also in 3D and even allows you to get on Shadow's motorcycle. But overall, Shadow Generations is not only an amazing next-gen 3D Sonic game that finally celebrates a part of Sonic's history that's been neglected for the longest time, that being the Adventure in Dark Age era, but it does justice to one of the best and most iconic Sonic characters, Shadow the Hedgehog, who hasn't had this big of a spotlight since 2006. Even though nothing will ever beat Sonic Generations for me because of my nostalgia for it, it's because of these reasons that I truly do believe that Shadow Generations is the best Sonic game in 13 years, even beating the masterpiece that is Sonic Mania, and I couldn't be happier that Sonic X Shadow Generations is my new favorite Sonic game. But anyways, that's going to be it for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I can't wait for the Year of Shadow to cap off with Sonic 3.